Mrs. Lola, Esan. So I'm just going to run through the profile of our panelists. For today, we also have Mrs. Funbi Matthews, who is also one of us, and she's going to be giving us a very exciting presentation shortly. So please permit me to go through the profiles of our speakers. I'll start with Mr. Faseun. So he has 30 years work experience that cuts across major sectors. He has a proven track record in leading and executing strategic change management initiatives, HR and service delivery. He began his career with a degree of English from the University of Ibadan. From the University of Awolowo, Ile-Ife, and he later acquired an MBA and other trainings from Cranfield University, UK, the Lagos Business School, and other institutions. He's a highly respected thought leader, subject matter expert. He's into HR strategy, manpower planning and resourcing, organizational learning, performance management system, succession planning, talent management, organizational design, as well as culture and leadership transformation. He also has a book which we're going to be sharing the link to for us to read. It talks about the now of work. So the basics of the book covers work beyond the pandemic and what we have at the moment. So very quickly, I'm going to run through the profile of Mrs. Lola Esan. She's an organization design specialist whose professional background spans media, advocacy, strategic human resource management, management consulting from different sectors, Mexico, Switzerland, United Kingdom, Nigeria. She holds a master's degree in international management from Queen Mary University, London, and a first degree from the University of Ibadan. She also has several certifications as well. She started her career as a media officer at the World Health Organization in Switzerland. She's also previously worked in HR consulting practices of a Big Four. Currently, she is a partner in charge of the Workforce Advisory Services of Ernst & Young West Africa. So lastly, I would have the profile of Mrs. Funbi Matthews. She is a strategic people and organization development professional with keen focus on people development, change management, ED&I employment, employee well-being, and organizational health. Her experience spans across private and public sector in Nigeria and the United Kingdom, where she's been privileged to work on people and organizational transformation projects. She has tremendous passion for continuous improvement, and this passion has led her to obtain a master's in occupational and organizational psychology from Surrey Business School, University of Surrey in the United Kingdom. She as well has a master's in public administration with specialization in public policy development and analysis from the University of Lagos. She's the lead consultant of Purple Insight, a boutique consultancy firm focused on connecting people to organizational strategy and creating sustainable competitive advantage for professional service firms, startups, and government institutions. In her spare time, she loves to help people, especially widows and the orphans. She runs a foundation in the memory of her grandmother called the Adewumi Foundation. She's happily married with 2 lovely kids, and above all, she loves God. Please give a warm welcome to our speakers. Our other speakers will be joining us in the course of the meeting. At the moment, I'm going to bring on Mrs. Matthew to give us her presentation. Welcome, Mrs. Matthew, and thank you everyone for listening.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I mean, it's such an honor to be a part of this conversation. I am here to learn as much as, I might just be sharing my knowledge of how, to win the war on talent. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you to Alan. Thank you for the opportunity. I am grateful. So I would quickly, because of time, go into a slide presentation. This is not in any way going to completely. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so this is not an attempt to provide exhaustive solution to the war, on talent. However, we'll just get a glimpse of, what my thoughts are. And so this is our learning session, last quarter learning session for 2022. It's such an honor to be here. I would not speak about Purple Insights, but this is a new initiative that I've had, just following from my passion for people and organization development. And so what are we looking at today? Winning the war on talent. As we can see from this illustration, we can see so many, at least ants, trying to take one male, female, people really want to stay together, but there are lots of forces out there, taking people from organizations, and people really wondering, what decisions do I make? We'd see that the male and the female, they really want to continue together because they are really holding themselves here. But at the same time, they're considering, where do I go? And it means that talents are basically wondering and deciding, I have different options, and which option should I take? At this point, for organizations that are experiencing war, on talent, this basically just means the way you just get resignation, from one of your staff that has been pushed, or that has been taken, or that has migrated, or for different reasons. That's an interesting, it's been an interesting journey. Within organizations, seeing how talent, is moving. Now, I would, if it's possible, we would just quickly ask ourselves question. Ijeoma, I don't know if you are available now. IJ, okay, excellent. So if you would please, I would just like us to, ask ourselves, we just want to know, are you experiencing war on your talent? We want to be sure that we're addressing the key issue here today. So please, could you just, take this poll? Yes, no, maybe, I can't relate. If we can do that very quickly, that would be great. Okay. Yeah, excellent. So for this particular question, we have 75% of the people say yes, they're experiencing war on, it's moving up. 80% says yes, they're experiencing war, on their talents. 10% of the participants say no. And another interesting is moving. I think I should wait a bit. And then we'll close the poll. Okay, I think we can take the statistics now, and then we close. Okay, it's changing. Okay. Let's take more. We'll stop now because of our time. Okay, so out of the 100% of participants, 69%, says yes, we're experiencing war on talent. 15% says no. Another 15% says, maybe, 0%, definitely every other person, everyone can relate to this topic. It's just whether they are being affected or not, which is a good thing. So we'll move to the next one. And that gives us an idea that, we're actually discussing an important conversation, because if 69% already says, they are experiencing war, then it means that it's a relevant topic. Can we take the next one, please? IJ, can we close this and take the next one?
So we took all three to save time, all the three questions.
Okay. So the second question, okay, so excellent. Okay, is the war impacting your firm's performance? And we can see here, 54% says yes, it is affecting their firm's performance. 15% says no, it's not, no, it's not. And 31% says sometimes. So if we had sometimes 31% and 54%, it means that we have 85% of attendees, confirming that, the war is impacting firms' performance, which also tells us that we're actually having the right conversation. Now, do you have a winning strategy to win the war on your talent? We can see here that 31% says yes, I have, and 15% is saying no, and then we have 54% saying this thing is hard though. So if we look at 54% plus 31%, it means that we actually have 85% of people who actually think that we don't have a strategy to deal with this at the moment. Again, this confirms that we're having the right conversation. Thank you everyone for taking the poll. It's always good for us to have clear definition of the problem at hand and to be sure that we're actually dealing with the right problem so that way we can have the right conversation. I would immediately then move in that instance. If everyone said no, then we wouldn't need to continue with this conversation. But now I think I have the permission because it's a relevant problem. Okay, if we look at, for me, I try to ask myself and say, the war, I think it's important for us to identify, first of all, what's the reason for this war? And there are two things I've looked at, and I've said we have external factors, right? We have external war factors and we have internal war factors. The external war factors, for me, would be first, globalization. As we can see, the world is now a global village. And that then means that everyone has come to understand that. And that tells us what immigration is now. I can move to anywhere. The world is a global village. There is no restriction anywhere. Everywhere in the country is opening up. Australia is looking for skilled workers. Canada is looking for skilled workers. UK is looking for skilled workers. US is looking for skilled workers. There are people who are retiring. They need new people to come in, and all of that. So there is a lot, and people now know people have options. So globalization is actually an external factor. And digitization is also another factor. As you will see, a lot of lawyers, I know a lot of lawyers that have left active, they're still in active practice, for instance, but they're now on Upwork. And they're just sitting on their bed or sitting, in their houses and working globally, working with firms across the world, just basically because, they can. And digitization has really helped. Now, demographics. We see this may seem like not an effect, but it's actually having an effect because the world is moving in such a way that there is now a function of, there is an emphasis on ED and high. And so people are constantly checking the demographics of the organization. And that then means that they need to open up to ensure that they bring in different people. Gender would play, different kind of things will play in terms of looking at the demographics of the organization. That also is a factor that actually, impacts, the war, on talent. And then the other one, which is a big one, is national government laws and policies. So how strong your national government is, your laws and the policies in the country is actually shaping whether people will decide to stay in that country or migrate or work, go somewhere else basically to work. So all of these for me are like external factors that are, impacting, the war for talent. And now when we look at the next thing, I would say internal factor quickly. Internal factors for me would be organization culture. The other internal factor is leadership. These two factors are the factors that I would say are key and determining whether you will win the war, of your talent or not, and shaping, your internal people strategy and your competitive advantage. Now, I have decided to look at it because culture can be very, very, misused or vague. Culture is simply how we do things here. And to break it further down, I've just decided to look at how do I break culture down. I say culture is basically your firm's values, the process that you undertake in doing or carrying out activities within your firm, and then the practices and the experience that you provide. These three components, symbolizes or describes the culture of your firm and shapes, whether you're going to win the war, of talent or not. And then we look at leadership. And when we say leadership, because leadership is also something now that it's a troubling thing all over the world. However, we would say that when we say leadership, how does that impact talent? I would say decisions. Decisions, because at the end of the day, whether you are a lead, who is the leader is not as important as what decision is that leader making within your organization, and how are those decisions impacting your talent or impacting your talent management strategy. So I would move quickly, having said that, and then I'll ask myself, winning the war on talent, reality check for me would be, the firm cannot control external factors. You are not in control of globalization. You are not in control of digitization, particularly external digitization that is not influenced by you, not internal one. You're not in control of demographics, world demographics. You are not in charge of government policies, and programs and leadership or governance in your country or national. So to a great extent, it means that all of these are not in your code, and the earlier you know, the better. However, the firm cannot control external factors, but must be able to anticipate and adjust to these factors to keep the firm on track. Whilst you cannot control it, it is important that you actually anticipate them and that you adjust to them. This head here is just showing what you are in control of, basically. And those ones that you're in control of here, which I'll then discuss further, are things that we need to pay a lot close attention to as we progress. We would see that in that instance, I would move quickly to say, what is then the focus? The focus would then be winning the war. Let me take culture. And so I say practices, and then I say processes. So your practices and your processes provide what I would call talent experience. The practices of your firm and then the processes, which are representation of your culture, basically impact the talent experience and will shape whether you're going to win the talent war or not. I'll move quickly. Talent war winning practices, for instance, in human resources management, talent management, is manpower planning, recruitment, people development, leadership development, performance management, succession planning, reward and recognition. And the questions in my mind, which I think we should ask ourselves at this point in time, is what skills do you need now? And how is your competency framework anticipating the future? Are you testing what you are supposed to test during hiring process? So what psychometric assessments are you using? Are you using the right one? Are your tests valid? Are they reliable? And are they testing what they're supposed to test? And how inclusive is your learning and development? Is it segregational, or is it inclusive enough? Do you have a leadership pipeline development plan? And then annual appraiser or ongoing transformation conversations. Individual or team performance incentive, what do you want to adopt? A mix, a blend, or one of it? I think all of those questions are things that we should ask ourselves and then begin to tell ourselves, how are the decisions that we're going to make when we reflect on these questions going to shape winning or losing the talent war? And from there, I would move immediately to automate processes, to measure employee experience. In real sense of the word, whatever is not measurable, it cannot deliver you can't improve it. So to a great extent, measure everything, guess nothing. And that means that it includes employee experience. People think that you cannot measure feelings, you can measure behavior, you can measure attitude. All of these are measurable. Measure everything and guess nothing. Be sure of people who are you attracting talent. How many are people starting your applications? Are they completing it? How many people are starting? How many people are completing it and the rest of it? Visitors, how many people are visiting your site? What's your brand, communicating? there are a lot of things that you need to measure, and it is important if you must win the war on talent. Employee experience, in a talent world, I'll say from the research, it says 97% of candidates with a positive experience refer other candidates. Do you want your candidates, do you want your talent to be able to refer that talent? And so how are you treating them? 55% of candidates will tell their social network about positive experience. Conversely, negative candidate experience can cost you considerable financial losses in the long run. And now, importance of employer brand for retaining employees. We can see here that 83% of employees would leave their current firm in case of getting an offer from a firm with a better reputation. Reputation is key in this instance. What is your firm's reputation? What are you known for? How do people experience you when they come in contact with you? Retaining employees based on source of application. And then 40% less employees leave companies with strong employer brand, at first, within 6 months of, employment. People love to stay with good brand. What is the brand of your firm? And then quickly, I'll go to key to winning the war for talent. This is not going to really, I've thought around this and I've thought of different things, but I've come to this one thing. And that's what I want to sit on and share. And that is, it all starts with a culture of trust. And trust actually leads to loyalty. Trust, as we can see in this image, it takes a lot of trust for this lady to be held by this man and believing that she wouldn't be dropped. I think that it is important that we build trust within our organizations, and if we give trust, we gain trust. And so I'll move quickly, and then I'll say trust. What do we mean? And trust is that you are going to do the right thing by the talent, that you've got the best interest of them and the business in mind. Employees are discerning, talents are discerning. They know if you are in that business just to make the money of it, or you're actually in that business for the long haul. People want to stay in businesses that have good values. They want to know that you have the good interest of the business. You have the good intention for the business in mind, that you are going to provide meaningful work and grow them. Everybody wants to grow. So you need to be able to provide that you won't replace them without cause. You won't wake up one day and just think that, they're just, people you can displace, that they are going to do a good job. Do you trust that they will do a good job? And that then comes to hybrid working, remote working. How are you dealing with that? That they are going to learn what they need to learn, and that they are going to do what's best for them and the business. You are going to do that, the company will do what is going to be best for them, and that they are also going to do what will be best for them and for the business, that they will be fair, at all times. And then the next thing I would say is to give trust and to get trust, you have a culture that blossoms. We need to build a culture and structure in which trust will flourish. What does that mean? Interesting fact shows that talent at high trust organizations reports 74% less stress. Who doesn't want or who likes stress? 106% more energy at work, 50% higher productivity, 13% fewer sick days, 76% more engagement, 29% more satisfaction with lives, 40% less burnout. And the source of this research is actually here, on my slide. And we taught trust, and then to get trust. If you withhold trust, what do you get? You get distrust. And this company that does, if you want to know a company that actually distrusts or withholds the trust, doesn't communicate with its people, downplays grumbles as dissension, doesn't make space for people to talk, speaks to people on one-on-one. Don't let somebody hear. It's just you I'm talking to. Rather than mixed one-to-one and team basis, doesn't invest in its people's growth, micromanages people, looks over people's head every time over what they are doing. There is no trust. Leaves people to their devices. Everybody into their own shallow, everybody trying to just make out life for themselves, and doing private hustles and the rest of it, and everybody is just doing their own business, just trying to make, ends meet without looking at the business itself. I think that If you have this option, the question would be, which would hold your talent attention? Would it be this organization that gives trust and that gets trust, or would it be this organization that withhold trust, and gets distrust? Which do you think your talent would want to stay in? The choice will be the talents, and you can be sure talent wants to stay in a positive environment. And so suggestions for me, and rather than just say, oh, this is what we should, the suggestions for me would be, communication is key. I would suggest team meeting 24 to 48 times a year, at least. One-to-ones, 24 times versus individual differences. It all depends on individual differences. Some people don't like a lot of meetings. Look at the demographics of your people, know what they want, and know the number of meetings or one-on-ones one-to-ones that you should have. Reviews, 2 times a year, and ongoing feedback will be good. Company catch-up, 4 times a year, at least 1 per quarter. Employee and company survey, at least twice a year. Get the pulse of your people and know what they think. Weekly or bi-monthly training. It is important that people continue to learn and learn from each other. You have resources inside the organization. Let them share knowledge amidst each other. Initiatives and intention. Have an open forum. Action valid feedback. Listen to low-level grumbles within your organization. Do not say, what are they talking about? Give people structured freedom. Structured freedom, I put that in, I like to emphasize that, structured freedom. Check in regularly. Let people know they are valued and respected. Inclusiveness, diversity, and equality has come to stay. In fact, it is the future of work. It is the now and the future of work. Without it, there is no way you can retain talent. And then the outcome would be effective communication, employee engagement, accountability, positivity, self-awareness, professional growth, mental well-being, social interaction, psychological safety. I would think that everybody wants all of these outcomes. And so develop that for your people. Winning talent trust, making it work. How do you do that? I'm sure somebody will be wondering, these millennials, these Gen Zs, how can you give them this freedom? How can I just leave something in their hands? The reality check for me and making it work would be, hold people to account. The fact that you trust someone doesn't mean you shouldn't hold them to account. Whilst empowering them, to grow, give them the information and the context to make these decisions, basically. Don't leave people in ambiguous, situation. Give them the medium to express views and work constructively on them. Show them that you action feedback. It is frustrating to ask people to do surveys, gather feedback. At the end of the day, nothing is done. It's a waste of your time, waste of your people's time, waste of your intellect, waste of everyone's, resources. How are your people feeling? Involved, energized, healthy, motivated, respected and loved, thankful, helpful, capable, supported? Are they feeling like a star? Are they knowledgeable? Are they respected? What are your views about remote work? Do you give people remote work? Do you think you should give it, or do you think you should monitor them? And hybrid system, what are your options? What are your people interested in? And how are they feeling about it? If you want your people to stay, if you want to attract talent, you need to keep checking how are people feeling and measuring feelings in the best way, using appropriate validated scales to measure. There are different scales, and a lot of scales are really, really not right for measuring feelings and measuring a lot of things. So be sure that you consult an appropriate, expert to deal with your measurement. So you are measuring the right things, and getting the right results. For me, I would say, are there challenges between, hybrid working, demand for remote work, upworking, cost of living increases? I know that's skyrocketed in Nigeria and everywhere in the world. But in the UK here is expensive, and increasingly talent-driven versus shortage markets. External factors impacting talent migration. Pandemic, there has been a lot of challenges. However, I would say now, the time to double down on your attraction and retention strategy is now. What is your culture mission? Do you have a culture mission? Do you even think about the culture of your organization? What is your leadership development and succession plan? Are you thinking about them and do you have them in place? Do you have an effective career development plan for your people? Do they feel secure? Do they have a future? What is your people value proposition? Have you thought about it and do you have it concrete? And how do you make effective and timely people decisions? Do you keep applicants hanging? What experience do you give them? And when they come, what is your onboarding process like? How are you making decisions? Do you send applicants to partners and then they are sitting on it, waiting, and then the applicant is waiting with their emotions, psychological contracts, and all of that, passing on bad information about your brand to other applicants who may be interested and who may serve your company in the future? How are you making decisions within your organization? I think all of these, for me, I do not have all the answers, like I said. It's basically questions that would help you to reflect. You have the answers and you can develop the answers with your people. However, with these questions, I believe you can go back and ask yourself and sit with your people and define what works and what will help you, to win the war for talent. Other than the ones that we have suggested and that I have suggested in this presentation, ultimately, people are your greatest source of sustainable competitive advantage. Create a culture that genuinely value people, respect, and support them. This quote is just by my humble self, Funbi Matthew. Final notes, people are going to mourn, definitely, but they will mourn much more if you don't develop the initiatives that provide positive experience, the trust, the growth, the career progression, and the support that they need. I hope that with these few points of mine, I've been able to convince you and not to confuse you that you can win the war for talent if you focus on your culture and you build practices, processes, that works and that can retain, your people and attract talent for you continuously to build a sustainable business. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. It was really insightful. And I know that we definitely have some things that we're going to further discuss during this session. I also thank you for, highlighting some of the things that I think has been the front runner for a lot of us. So just very quickly, we're going to have our next speaker talk to us. Please welcome with me, Mrs. Lola Esan. Welcome, Ma. We're glad to have you this wonderful Saturday morning, and thank you for taking time to join us on this session.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be back. I think I've done a lot of programs with you, Alan, so it's always nice to speak. I don't even know where to start from. So as we say here, Funbi, you have finished work. So you've kind of spoken to everything already. So I'm just going to add a full stop. But anyway, thanks. So I do have slides. I don't know if I'm able to share screen.
Yes, you are. You're one of the co-hosts. You can proceed with that.
Okay. So I'm actually just projecting now. Please let me know if you can see it.
Yes, I can.
Yes,
I think.
see it.
Okay. Thank you. So I just thought I'll do a bit of, I think Funbi's done excellent in terms of really speaking to the real issues. So I'm probably just going to add a few stats and then also speak generally into some of the things we're seeing, at least from a research point of view. So I really latch on and refer to her presentation a great deal because it did set great context for the topic we're discussing this morning. You will notice I kind of changed the topic. I didn't stick to the point of war on talent because I think if something is now your reality, it's no longer war, right? It's not a question of something you're fighting to finish or emerge victorious, or it's not a win-lose or a win-win situation. In this case, it is now our reality. As I say to people, the V in VUCA is no longer volatile. It's now velocity. So it's how fast can you really convert the opportunities? I'd not say challenges, I'll say opportunities you're seeing in this case for your own advantage. So I'll be speaking to a few starts. This really is a combination of work EY has done, also leveraging data from different reputable organizations that you can see on screen. And essentially my conversation to you this morning, really latching on the foundation Funbi has set, will speak to these 4 things and how it impacts the work for talent within the law firms and legal services. Because think about it, it's still one of the few sectors that are largely owner-led and owner-managed. So even though these days we have a lot of them stepping down, appointing younger people to take over the reins, but at the end of the day, it's still one of those professions that you can practice for life. So you're a lawyer for life, unlike those of us who have to probably do paid employment and leave at 60, but lawyers continue. So if there's any environment where you're dealing with the reality of multiple generations at work, law firms are a fantastic example of that, because you have all levels really. Owner, founder, you have instances of father, son, and even second, third generation joining. Employee engagement, I think Funbi did a great job, a great expose on that. I probably will just share a few stats around it. She talked about tech, she talked about performance management. So this will really be my focus this morning on how you can seek or take advantage of the disruption that we're seeing in the talent environment, in talent pool or talent space, as it were. So as I said, this one is not a war, because there is no winner or loser at the end of the day. It's the reality. I mean, I did mention someone called Huawei Y9. Are you saying something? Perhaps, moderator, if you can help me sort of mute everyone who's not speaking. Thank you. So when we look at the aging workforce and millennials, I started out by saying that greater than ever, the law firms are a fantastic example of the 4 or 5 generations at work, pretty much because of the realities of how most of the firms are. When you look at this data, even though we did this a while ago, it's not this year, but it's amazing how you can see what was done 3-4 years suddenly playing out. At the time, it looked like a long time, but today it's our reality. So obviously we mentioned that due to population, 2020 would emerge or have surplus talent. And I think if you look at even the way law firms or the way lawyers are graduating law school, the numbers are outstanding. You're having 5,000, thinking, okay, where would they absorb all of these people? So again, when it comes to population, generally, you're probably even dealing with an oversupply. So when you then say there's a war for talent, it also then begs the question, is there probably a need to differentiate between human capital, human resources, and talent? Some people will tell you that human capital is anyone who is ready within the age of work. But talent is truly anyone who can convert the realities of what you need them to do to contribute to your strategy, etc. That is really talent. What I tend to think, and I tend to have a different view, that talent generally is any human being that has been given an opportunity to contribute. So if we go by that, then definitely we do have a talent surplus situation. It's a question of where are the opportunities to absorb them. I mean, the experts are saying that by 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. In EY today, this is our reality. Our population globally is actually 75% millennials. So we're having to innovate and change so fast because you have to make sure you sustain and keep this dynamic or this demographic connected. And I mean, we talked about it a lot in terms of you can't really be trying to survive in the new normal with old techniques and old tactics. It would not work. Essentially, we've got population increasing, but we also have an aging population, also ballooning the talent sector. And as I mentioned, with law firms, a lot of you have owner-manager situations. So when you're talking about what is talent and how to cater for their needs and how to win the war for talent, you would need to plan for this particular demographic. A lot of them are still in the era of books have to be hard copy and not accessing some libraries online. A lot of them are struggling with the realities of how can you really be a lawyer and you're not present. You want to do virtual, you want to work virtual. You're saying courts should even now sit virtually. So there are all those conversations. But is it really a losing battle, or can we truly find an oasis where every single talent, as I've so described, finds their place? And I actually think the answer is we can actually have that oasis where everyone finds their place. And so we should be asking ourselves, as against winning this war, I'd like us to add a bit of the word proactively, because as I mentioned, it's not going to change. Jackpot is adding to this example haven't come out of the pandemic, a lot of lawyers are realizing that there's more to me than the law degree I have. They want to do other things. So concepts like fit and proper is even now thrown in it's no longer tenable. You see fantastic lawyers who have colored hair, tattoos. So all of those stereotypes no longer hold sway. So how do you get someone to be comfortable, in this case, maybe the owner founder, comfortable with this new reality of what it means in terms of talent and those available to work? So let me move on quickly. A bit of stats here, talking about how population explosion would impact all areas generally. If you look at the transition from 2005 to 2015, you would see that when it comes to total employment and even requirements, you would see there's a lot of emphasis on emerging economies. And you can see the others are slowing down. Look at how Nigeria, in just 10 years from 2025 now, you can see the population growth that's expected to happen. So when it comes to the topic of this sort you're having this morning, it is not only timely, it is quite instructive for how sustainable law firms will be in the future. Because law school is bringing out so many people. A lot of people are thinking they want to do other things beyond their law degree. You're asking yourself, how do I balance that? So generally, if you look at what would now need to happen, bearing in mind that 75% of the global population, even though a lot more will reside in Asia, but you can see Nigeria is steadily rising, we would need to take a look generally at what matters to people. So when we look at the top 5 priorities, again, in a survey done from different areas, you can see that the priorities of millennials is really forcing a rethink for how we would manage talent moving forward. Law firms typically used to be one of those places where the respect or the amount of accountability you're given is tied to your call year or who is at par with you in terms of who is in the partner class. But all of those are changing. You are seeing people these days leave straight from law school, they set up and they're doing quite well because they found a niche area. You're seeing a lot of young girls asking, why does 10 years need to be the minimum before I assume the revert status of partner? So a lot of these things are changing, and we would have to change with the times really if we're going to be able to attract and keep people. So even though money emerged tops, because again, millennials and the ones coming after generally like the good life. So if you remember back in the day, all the rude jokes about law being a place you didn't go to make money, all that is changing. You have commercial law firms paying as high as investment banks, because now you have to make the profession cool enough for everyone who would rather opt for investment banking or be a content creator, be as interesting. You even now have lawyers who are using social media to create content. So when it comes to the reality of employment or the reality of work, the lines are so blurred that you would need to step away from your traditional ways and mode of thinking to truly be able to compete and successfully get quality talent and not just human capital. So security, job security is key. I think that's one area and one strength that law firms should project. I mean, you really have to have done something really bad or really work for a place where the values are really off for you to be asked to leave. So if you now find that law firm that has that sweet spot that connects all the things that matter to this demographic and really give them truly exciting work, you would notice that you have better attrition levels than the others. Holidays and time off are quite important, but unfortunately, law firms seem to have that reputation of being a place where if you ask for your leave and your vacation time, you are seen to not be serious or committed. It's seen as one of those places where you can't be clock working to go home at 5 because you have other interests. You have to be there when the owner founder is leaving. That's when you probably can start thinking of leaving. A lot of people have an extra jacket or something in the office because work should be round the clock. So a lot of that is changing. And law firms would also need to adapt with the times. Great people is also a requirement for working. You find out that at least in Nigeria, there is that reputation that law is only for serious people. You can't be cool. You can't do fun stuff. But if you have people looking for experience that allows them do or extend the things they enjoy at home into the office, then clearly you would need to be revisiting how and what you have on offer for anyone to join your firm. And then of course, flexible work arrangements. I noticed and have spoken to a few lawyers who struggle with this reality of the fact that you can actually make law or work in a firm fully remote. I know of a law firm, for example, in Nigeria that they don't have a return to work plan. They're still largely flexi, doing their hybrid things. They've totally removed their dress code. Everything is now available digitally, and they're still making money. They're still expanding, they're still growing. So all you need and all it takes is for one person to challenge the status quo. Unfortunately, with Alan, you have that opportunity because you sit on top of everything a law firm should be doing in terms of practice, in terms of running properly, in terms of having a fully efficient back office. So the insights really should come from you. Now, what are some of the insights we're seeing from law firms in terms of what matters to lawyers in the decision to take up employment? For one, a lot of lawyers are saying that there is a lot to be desired in how law firms are embracing hybrid and remote work. So it's not something that's going to go away. I, for example, have not worked a full week in an office since 2014. So even before the pandemic and all of that, that was my reality. The fact that I didn't have to go into the office every day. As a firm at EY, we don't have a policy to return. So it's down to if you want to come in. So what we've only recently started doing is once a month, we have a fun day where people come in. At least remind yourself what people look like. But work is still going on well. I've had my most successful years running my practice sitting in my house. So we need to rethink and revisit what we're doing around remote work. It's not a nice to have. It is now the now normal. As I said, V is no longer volatile, it's velocity. How quickly can you convert the challenges, or in this case, opportunities that the disruption is providing? And law firms are not exempt from that reality. There's also an insistence on a need to enhance communication such that tenants feel a connection with the larger entity. So it seems to be a bit of a reverse status. So if you're a partner, there's like some matters we discuss, and then we kind of trickle down through a funnel what gets down to the others. But lawyers are clamoring for more. If we're going to work here and build a career here, we want to be truly and fully involved in things affecting us. So it should not be that a handful get together in some office behind locked doors to determine the fate of others. We want to talk about those issues. A lot of the organizations who beat the challenges of the pandemic were the ones who really opened up to their staff to say, you know what, we don't know what to do because we're all winging it here. What do you think we should do? And as Funbi mentioned, that's how we began to promote and grow trust. So trust is not something you demand or ask for. It's something that is grown, it's something that is nurtured, and it comes from the sum total of experiences. Lawyers are also clamoring for an opportunity to add their voice, both formally and informally. So if you want people to really stay and build a career, then if again, you remember that people are looking for experiences, not employment. So the fact that I have gone to law school to be a lawyer, I'm not looking for a job as a lawyer. I'm looking for life experiences just through the legal route, which is why we need to be okay with the fact that I can be a great lawyer and be a great travel blog content writer, a great makeup artist, all of those things, because law is just one aspect of my expression. It's one aspect of my experience. And as the individuals in charge of managing welfare, back office, protocols, processes, we need to be infusing and enforcing experience management in how we manage law firms. The era of fit and proper, where you're black and white, look straight, don't laugh at any joke, be all serious, is gone. Because you're now fishing out of a pool of people who have gone through some of the toughest experiences known to man. And so they want more. They expect more, and they demand and ask for more. We also need to invest in tools and tactics for better well-being management. Fun Fridays is good, but we need to take it a step further. Mental health is on the rise. Legal profession, whether you like it or not, is one of those ones that can also bear an unbelievable amount of stress. A lot of people are dealing with the stress, at least those who are in litigation, haven't won a case. And as you all say, everyone is innocent until decided as guilty. Losing a case can bring emotional stress. Having to defend someone, for example, who's probably involved in something that is in conflict with your values can bring stress. Having to wait for national systems to move fast because you believe justice should be, there's a lot of stress everywhere. So we need to be very, very deliberate about stress management. Investment in things like employee assistance programs is not something that should be left for only fintech. Unbelievable amount of pressure from home. We should offer people support. People who are probably waiting for the fruit of the womb, people who are looking to get married, stress, all of those things. We need to bring those topics mainstream into how we manage law firms. Of course, I want to then move closely and quickly into engagement, because I kind of delved into engagement, talking about well-being. So generally, as we all agree, and I think Funbi mentioned, that More engaged employees inevitably would lead to better businesses or well-run practices. And we're also seeing from stats that organizations that have prioritized employee engagement are generally 17% more productive. So imagine going to your managing partners and saying, I think we should invest in ABCDEFG, rather than say, oh, Lagwaja across the streets did it. It's the question of, these are the things I'm expecting to see. So we're saying, you know what, we should really continue to do hybrid and remote work. And then they ask you, how are you sure people will still work? And you say, well, let's invest in, let's get proper teams and not the free teams, because a lot of people are still using the free version, missing out on the version that has the full work capability, including dropping agreements, 100 people reviewing the same agreements at the same time. All of those work tools exist. And you say, let's invest in it. And this is how much exponential growth we would see in our revenues. I'm not sure there's any owner manager that you put stats before that will tell you, no, that's all touchy-feely. That's for the guys in the other sector. So we also need to move the conversation to backing up these conversations with clear statistics and detail. Organizations that have actually invested in engagement are seeing 41% less absenteeism. This is quite important now, especially as we're talking about quiet quitting, whereby I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to do the barest minimum that pays my salary. The rest, I leave it for you people. Even though people are at home, as I say to people, I am working longer hours being at home, because there is that general sense of self-accountability. I'm like, I haven't done 8 hours of EY work today. How do I get around to doing it? But because having the opportunity of being at home allows me pick my kids, do other things, truly my work and my life has integrated. So I don't see it as me cheating my life because I want to work. And you can actually track this thing. So, and it's not by saying, oh, you must be logged in, because I can be logged in, be in front of my computer, but trust me, I'm not there, man. And that's quiet quitting. Businesses who have also invested are also 21% more profitable, and then generally 10% better customer ratings. I don't think I need to really discuss that too much. On the point of well-being, on the average, we're seeing general increase in people who work in organizations that have invested in productivity. So caring organizations essentially report better stress management outcomes than those who have not invested. You might be like, oh, this is law. How can we be talking about these touchy-feely things? These are the realities. Stress is there. Having gone through the pandemic, a lot of us haven't even had a chance to actually internalize what we've gone through, what we've survived, first as individuals, then as an organization. I had a chance to talk to my leaders in EY, very senior people. I had a chance to attend a global event. And I remember saying to the global CEO that, you know what, I wanted to say thank you, because watching them being very vulnerable about how they went through the pandemic, for me, was a great source of motivation for how I manage my people. But this whole, we need to step down a bit from that whole, oh, this is law, it's revered, you cannot say this or do that. These are real issues. If you're going to manage and deal with attrition, you must be speaking to the issues that matter with people. If you look at this point, for example, to see what happens when leadership support is used to enhance well-being, 73% of employees, at least in the survey, reported outcomes or benefits of having gone through this process. And this is everybody, by the way, not just anyone. So I just want to touch quickly on tech. Funbi had talked a lot about it because, again, law is one area where tech would also bring exponential benefits for managing, or in this case, winning the war of talent, and that's the theme of the event. If you look at what's happened with tech, pretty much every single person has a smart device. Pretty much every single person is connected in one shape or form. So why are our libraries still manual? Why are we still insisting that people come in for our monthly, weekly meetings? Because we want to see, hold, feel, and touch the people who are paying salaries. Why a lot of law firms still not on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram? Those are not things for only unserious people. If you are going after a certain demographic or a certain group, then you have to find them where they are. And that currently is the country where they reside. So of course, on your TikTok page, you're not going to do the funny dances and all, but you must follow where your talent is. It's not only in law school, but even those on law school, a lot of them, law school, I beg your pardon, a lot of them even they're making money from TikTok and YouTube. So why are a lot of law firms not available and engaging there? It's important that we begin to look at so there's a difference and it doesn't change the ethos of the profession, by the way. You will still be serious, you will still defend people, you will still be the custodian of everything fit and proper. But you're talking about finding people who you want to engage enough to stay in the profession and the practice. The places to find them is not just law school or the scoreboard, best graduating. You have to follow suit. You have to track. And guess what? Even the next generation of customers follow the people who are finding them. So your future customers and your sustainability even lies and rests on embracing technology. So we should be having a different conversation with technology in the office, in our law firms, beyond email, beyond, okay, maybe some are managing to have online libraries, but you should actually connect and be on the forefront of what's happening. It would also, whether you believe it or not, be another inroad for even developing new business units these days. So we need to embrace technology. Let's change the relationship we have with it. Now, we talked about automation. We're also seeing a lot of benefits come out from automation. Imagine automating your full library. That means that people who have succumbed to the jackpot scenario, for example, can still work with you. And I know law firms that have done that. They've actually allowed people who have moved, actually females, because that's also another area. You have a lot of females leaving when they're about ready for partnership because family interest, kids are growing, husband got a job elsewhere, he wants to move. So we need to make sure our practices are actually following the trends and the times. And automation, believe it or not, would enable us at least hold on to those group of people. Jackpot is here to stay, is our reality. But people are not walking into ready-made jobs. So we must align our practices such that at least for that 3-6 months while they are settling, they still maintain connection. You are also not under pressure to go and recruit because it's also expensive to recruit. And where are the people, frankly? It also means that whether you like it or not, there's an opportunity to establish satellite offices in those areas. Because as you know, people most times have to do menial jobs and things to balance when they get there. And then law being a specialized profession, they have to train for the countries where they're going. So imagine being able to do that, but I'm keeping my job in Nigeria. And then the CEO says, but how am I sure they're not doing my job? That's where performance management comes in. You agree goals and targets, you agree expectations. If the person is meeting it and tracking, what's your business if they want to work 24 hours round the clock? The era of monitoring spirit, because I'm employed, is shifting, it's changing. People now have their 24 hours to do as they please, and we must keep with the times. If you look at some stats around what automation has done, 91% of people who took part in the survey said it saved time and increased efficiency. With the traffic situation in most metropolitan cities, if your libraries are online, you can actually have somebody who has gone to their family house, so long as you have internet, and they're somewhere in those states, and they're able to log in, still do the work, do the meetings and all of that. Then that way, the claims on sick leave, absenteeism and all because of stress will reduce. Attrition will go down because you are allowing people fit in the other realities of their life into the work. I could go on and on and on and on and on. Some example of the things that people have done with automation, and I know in your own case, law firms, it would be so much more beyond all of the things you have on here. I'm mindful of time, so I'm also trying to move quickly. If you look at what digitization has done, for example, this just has some stats. I will share my slides later, and so you're able to see and reflect on how these stats impact you. Now, what are some of the things we should be doing as law firms? Because that's the point about this, right? Rather than focus in this case on some of the things lawyers have complained about. Research is also showing that beyond all the things we've talked about earlier on, and I think we talked about word of mouth and how it helps you recruiting and all of that, you will see that from the stats I have here, 56% of the lawyers who took this particular survey I'm referencing and who rated their experience as 9 or 10 out of 10 were 4 times more likely to commend the culture of their firm. They were 6 times more likely to applaud their firm for being collaborative. They were 6 times more likely to talk about their firm's ability to treat people fairly with respect. And they are 3 times more likely to say their own values align with the firm's values and ethos. At the end of the day, I keep saying this a lot. In fact, this is now probably one of the most popular statements attributed to me, that people are not looking for employment anymore. So that work for me, my firm is tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. That's for the owner manager's pocket. That's for your ego. People are looking for part of their life experiences, part of what connects or feeds their purpose and their impact on earth. And so they would align with a brand or a firm that does that for them. It's not about the name or how cool you are, or how many sons you have, or how many offices or locations you are in. People are looking for a bridge between their values, their purpose, and impact. And the sum total of everything we've been talking about today is what creates that connection. That is truly the answer to solving the war for talent, the connection of all three. You can have a great organization, great founder, very popular, 100 sons. But when it comes to the antecedents of that business, when it comes to how you embrace technology, when it comes to how you support your tenants through their life transitions, and you're a zero there, probably people would work with you just to get a sense of what's it like, but you will constantly be hiring. And so winning the war for talent is also staying proactive. And Funbi talks about external realities. Jackpot is one of them. Staying truly proactive on what those instances can do for you is really one way to also win this war. And then, of course, in the research, managing a hybrid work environment emerged as a key area where lawyers see room for firm leadership to improve. If I took a poll now and asked how many of us have forced people to come back on site, we'll probably end up with 50-50. Remote work, hybrid, flexi is no longer a nice to have. It is a must have. I will repeat it again for those at the back. Hybrid work is not a nice to have. It is a must have in the realities of the now normal. Law firm, engineering firm, what you must do is maybe aspects of your business that are proving difficult to automate, to get on board technology. Ask your people again, what should you do? Again, keeping to the people want to be involved in decisions or matters that affect them. Ask them, what should we do to get on board it? Funbi talked about employee surveys. Ask people, how are they feeling? What do they think? As against the revered group of 3 or 4 people sitting down in a corner and deciding for them. We would need to really become very proactive when it comes to how we manage people. A quick touch on performance management. A lot of organizations are seeing that, look, performance management really, people are using for 1 or 2 things. How much money extra should I give you? What kind of training should I send you on? Or who do I decide to bump into the revert status of managing associate or partner or whatever? But you see, those traditional systems are damaging to what matters to the type of talent you have today. People don't see why they need to stick around to be part-time in 10 years. They can just go set up their own and call themselves anything. People don't see why they need to stick around and be rated by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because they are more than their law degree. They are fantastic fashion designers, makeup artists, tattoo artists, and everything deserves a place in an organization. So if I'm looking for experience, I would not have to be less of who I am to be more of what my employer expects me to be. So again, the bridge between purpose, values, and impact is what ultimately even a performance management system should strive to achieve. Your performance management system should support your employee engagement initiatives. This is not to say we treat it as a free-for-all, or it's not a crash where everybody will be happy and all. But it's now calling for an equitable environment. So I want to work only 20 hours. I don't want to do 40 because I want to do other things. Your system should accommodate that need. Well, I know it's gradual. Again, this is Nigeria. We can't get to it by snapping our fingers. But we need to be open to the fact that these are some of the realities. I have to move to Canada, but I still want to work for the law firm. Why is it that by doing that, you automatically tell me I can't be promoted to certain classes or cadres? Is it my physical presence that determines that I'm connected or working? So we would need to become very, very intentional about how we assess performance on its own. So it's no longer that we're assessing presenteeism, eye service, or those other things that we do. Because in this new reality of a war for talent, the cost of replacement is not just getting a recruiter. It's also how long it takes the person to settle down into your work environment. It's also how long it takes the person to understand and demonstrate your culture. It also determines how long it takes the person to interact and serve your clients the way you ought or expect them to be done. So it's not a 6-month activity if you put all of these things I've talked about in a time frame. So part of winning this war on talent is to do all we can to keep the ones we have, and most importantly, to keep them engaged. And when it comes to our assessing our performance, we should be focusing a lot more on values of our organization as against what you should pay and how you should pay. Because you find out that that's what a lot of people are doing with the outcomes. Looking at time, just so I'm again managing time, beyond the forms and all the other things we do, we also need to focus on making sure our performance appraisal system is giving feedback. People say feedback is a gift. And you know, sometimes a gift you like, sometimes you don't like, sometimes you deserve, sometimes you don't deserve. It must be given or seen as a gift. So everyone should be entitled to feedback. And essentially 3 things. How am I doing? What should I be doing differently? even better if I do these 3 things. We also recommend that you do what's called a good, bad, good sandwich. So when you're about to give bad feedback, think about 2 things the person has done to cushion it. It takes practice. So we must also train our partners, line managers, team leads on how to give feedback and appraise people. It should not just only be whether they know the law. They should also be skilled and urgently on how to manage people. When I talk to my friends who work in law firms, I find out that it seems to be a very high pressure environment. We shred people down, we cut people down. We do a lot of those, giving people pressure. We need to prioritize training our leaders on how to give feedback. People are not leaving bad organizations, they are leaving bad managers. And that also contributes to how well you win or lose this war for talent. Very important. So what are the 5 questions I'm going to leave you with as I begin to round up? 1, ask yourself after today's conversation, how do we embrace automation to keep our workforce on site? Automation obviously is a journey. It's not something you get today. You might not be able to automate your libraries as of yet, but can you probably automate a clocking system whereby you manage how people come into the office so you can truly achieve some hybrid work environment? Can you achieve some form of automation in terms of feedback systems so people can actually use automation to at least achieve some of the meetings you want to have? Can you use automation, for example, on the onboarding process for your clients? So we need to sit down and be asking ourselves when we have the planning meetings that, look, what exactly should we be doing to make sure we benefit from the upside? Remember, V is no longer volatility, is velocity. What skills do we need to thrive in the new normal or in the now normal? Because it's not the old, your old skills can't allow you to thrive in the now normal. For one, you would need to train your leaders on how to manage virtual teams. It's a skill set. I didn't realize it was something I needed until I took a short LinkedIn learning course. And I had so many aha moments because the way you give feedback, manage a team, organize meetings that are done in a hybrid format is very different from when people are in the office. There are also certain rules and regulations around how you onboard or engage in the now normal in terms of people working virtually. You need to urgently train your people on how to give feedback and appraise people. You also need to train your tenants and other colleagues in the law firm on how to even prepare for their appraisal system or appraisal feedback session. Because it's a meeting, it's a relationship, it's not one way of just talking down to people. There has to be an exchange of ideas. We need to ask ourselves, how are we communicating in the organization? I showed you that slide that talked about the priorities people have. People want to be involved in decisions that affect them. If you've hired adults, then please let them be adults. Engage, 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 ask, question. Even when you thought you had the answers and it's wrong, go back and say, you know what, we didn't get it right. What do you guys think? You also need to see how you can use technology to enhance the practice management function. And then how do you keep them engaged in the era of machine? Yeah, Fun Fridays are good, but let's go beyond Fun Fridays. Let's actually connect with people at the level of the emotional. What are those issues that will ultimately affect how long they choose to stay in your law firm, how long they choose to work with your brand, how long they choose to even stay in the profession, because we're seeing an exodus of lawyers from the profession. Of course, everything from the paying grades to the stress to the hours, all of those things. And then generally, what can we do to proactively win the war on talent? Apologies, that last question is a repetition. So ladies and gentlemen, always a pleasure to be invited. I tried to keep to time and I think I achieved it within my plan. So yeah, I'll take any comments or questions, but thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Ma, for your time and the presentation. It was very insightful. I would say while I'm waiting for questions to come, I would say that one of the questions that did come to mind was, how do we engage the owners of the business on a mindset shift, considering that change is a very touchy subject for a lot of persons. But I'm glad that you've reiterated something that we need to train people and guide people as to how to manage teams better, because now we're no longer trying to win the war on talent. It's a normal now and we need to adjust. So thank you so much for that presentation, and the skills that you have given us have been very, very helpful. We hope that we're able to apply it to our field because, I mean, like you said, it's a professional service space and the law business largely has been, oh, I mean, I have the knowledge and I can run with it. I can do all. So thank you so much, Ma. Please, audience, if you do have questions, please send to me so that we can have Mrs. Esan take them very quickly before we move to our next panelist. Thank you so much, everyone. Okay. Thank you so much, Mrs. Esan. I think that the session was very insightful to everyone because I'm getting the feedback that it was a good one, and your slides sort of address most of the issues that we did have. So we're going to be moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is taking the ALAN vision and mission statements. Okay. Mrs. Harrison has her hands up. I think she has a question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ijeoma. Thank you so much, Lola. It's great to see you. Thank you. It's always brilliant, listening to you and Funbi. We really cannot. It's as if we shouldn't let you go. We should just, grab your heels and so that you stay with us. So Ijeoma had raised the question actually, and I would, before we go into our Alan's values and vision, I'd like for us maybe to discuss that a bit, because I'm sure everybody's head is just rolling around implementation, action, next steps. We have, and you have very, very brilliantly described the law firm scenario where we have a lot of diehard old brigades, that are not ready to let go, So Chioma's question really about mindset shift. How do you go about it? I really would like to repeat that question, and maybe if we can discuss around that before you go. And then this issue of quiet quitting for me is a very interesting one. And, I believe it was my daughter that I first got that word from, and I know it's a buzzword now, but it would be good to see, we can't take a poll, but just to have a feel of really how that is happening around us or within our law firm and how to arrest it. But I guess it has to do with a lot with engagement. But if we can talk a bit around that, it will be helpful for me. You are there, but you are not there. The quiet quitters, even more dangerous than the people putting in their resignation. Thank you again, Lola. It's a blessing to see you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Always nice to see you, and thanks for always inviting me back. So, great question. And I always say to people that at the end of the day, it's what you're looking for. So as one of the 7 habits says, begin with the end in mind. What is that end? You ultimately want to be able to get your leaders to have a shift or a rethink. And so it's usually not a one-size-fits-all approach for starters. The first thing I say is gather data. There is no business owner that you engage on the fact of what will change or what will happen, naira and kobo, or with clear stats that would not sit up. But what I also find a lot of us administrators, HR practitioners do is, because it borders on emotion, we put forward the feelings first before the facts. And if that's what you've done, you've lost them at the, and they'll go, oh, Lagbaja has done it. Well, Lagbaja has done it. I'm not Lagbaja.
Good morning, everyone. It's a very short one, so you'll be able to run away very soon. I just wanted to ask.
Yemi, can you type your question? Because I was mid-sentence.
Yeah, exactly.
So just type your question.
Who was that?
So that's one. So the first thing is go with data. The second thing is take it in bite sizes. In a lot of mid-size owner-manager environments, they can't go on a long drawn journey before they see the end. So you have to be able to structure it in mind of projects. So when we do this, we see this result. I go back and say, here's what we've done, and then I'd like to do phase 2. But if you're saying, oh, we need to go full round electronic libraries, all of that, the person is seeing, how many $1 million? These books are cost so much that I sold my car to be able to buy this volume or whatever. So bite size. Think about what you can do, small, that will bring the incremental value. So that's the second thing. The third thing is to always have, and it's a very important trick, by the way, have them position it as their idea. When I used to be in line HR, I did a lot of things as HR manager, but if you go to that organization, you will not find my signature on a lot of the memos because I co-opted leadership early to own the idea. Most of the guys who are ladies who you work with, they have such strong egos. If it is not their idea, then it cannot work. So you should be sending these people thought leadership, preferred thought leadership from EY and then other professional services firms on what people are doing, what is different, what is changing. They are the ones that come and meet and say, hell, this quiet quitting that I'm seeing. So let's also learn to not be too pushful. Then a bit of patience is also required. At the end of the day, if someone has formed these views and these ideas in 40 years, they can't get on board remote work and all of that. Let's start from, okay, maybe let's try out the 4-day week. A lot of them schooled in the UK, they did all sorts. And the UK civil service recently tried out the 4-day week to great results. Share that information. Just a few thoughts as to the benefits and what they saw and leave it there. So almost the same way you go and get favors from your spouse and you have to manage. A lot of us need to learn to read the moods of our managing partners and senior leadership better. If it has to do with spending more money, you know you get pushback. If it has to do with them not opening the door and seeing the many heads they strived all these years to acquire, you know you'll get the pushback. So a lot of it sometimes requires that you look differently and then use data. For me, it would be data, a bit of patience, structuring it such that you can celebrate small wins until you get the big idea. Those are some of the strategies I can say. And then, of course, if you want me to come and advise you as a service, I also provide I'm a service provider. So let me not advertise since I didn't ask for advert space, but I'm a service provider. So if you want to look at how you can revisit your policies as well, it's a service that can be provided. So, Yemi, you had a question. I don't know if I've answered that question.
Yes, you have. I think your analysis has perfectly answered the question. Thank you. Yemi, you did have a question. Please, can you proceed?
Sorry, Ijeoma, if I may, the Yemi should please introduce themselves. We need to know who is the Yemi, because I think we may have admitted wrongly. If the Yemi person is still on, could you introduce yourself so we know? Thank you. Lola, thank you very much once again for the presentation. Thank you, Ijeoma.
Thank you, Mrs. O. Yemi, please, if you would introduce yourself so that we can proceed.
Mrs. Funbi, maybe you can just help to find out if it's our next.
Okay, Ijeoma, I think we should move on. Maybe the person is thrown out or something.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Mrs. Esan. You have been particularly helpful with the things that you have brought to light and the information you have shared with us. It is our hope that we'll be able to achieve some of these feats and implement some of these things, maybe baby steps or large steps, however, but we will be able. Thank you so much.
Do something. Do something.
Yes,
that's the point.
Definitely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so we're just going to move to the next thing on our agenda, which is the Alan vision and mission. We would have Tony taking us through that. Welcome, Tony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ijeoma. Okay, so I will going through Alan's vision, mission, and core values. All right. Okay, so our vision statement, and this is for those of us who are perhaps joining for the first time, or you've heard of Alan, you've never really gotten to know what we stand for. So our vision statement, our vision is shaping the future of legal practice management by building professional competencies through strategic collaboration and thought leadership. Achieving this vision is why we have the alignment sessions. We want to be able to build all of that. The mission statement is to build professional competencies through strategic collaboration and thought leadership. All right. So we're building collaboration across not just law firms, but different industries that will benefit us as a body, as Alan. So we can move to the next slide. IJ. Okay, so our core values have been sort of aggregated into what we call CLIP, a set of strong core values. The core values will drive our relationships with and our responsibilities to one another and to all our stakeholders. All right, no organization exists without. Okay, can you all hear me? Is it clear?
Yeah. Better now.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Okay, so these core values reinforce our strengths and underscore our aspiration to become a great association. Every member of Alan is expected to lead by these core values, all right? They've been compressed into what we call CLIP, and we'll go through those core values one after the other. The first is creativity, all right? We are innovative in our approach to creating sustainable legal management solutions and to adapting to the challenges emerging in our global environment. We encourage curiosity, new ideas, and design thinking. You cannot in this time and age not have creativity as one of your key skills or values as a person, and we value that as a body, Alan. All right, we believe in being able to come up with out-of-the-box ideas that can solve problems, and we also encourage people to think outside the box. All right. Okay. The next slide. Leadership. All right. We exist to make impact, lead change initiatives, and are focused on providing thought leadership and training that is geared towards building professional competencies for legal business service professionals. All right. So we want to take the lead. Look at today's conversation. We want to be able to drive change and drive initiatives through leadership by bringing out suggestions, recommending things that would help grow the legal profession as a whole. All right. Integrity, yes, this is a serious core value. Not undermining the others, but I mean, integrity. We exist to make impact, lead change initiatives, and are focused on providing thought leadership and training. This seems like the same text. Am I wrong? Seems like the same text for the last one I just read. Okay, no, go back to integrity. Integrity now. Yes, we exist to make impact, lead change initiatives, and are focused on providing thought leadership and training that is geared towards building professional competencies for legal business service professionals. Okay, integrity is one of our core values. We believe that integrity is important for us as a body, as I also believe that it is important for all of us as individuals, as a group. So when we come collectively, integrity for us matters. You cannot, if I limit this to law practice, you cannot practice law without having integrity and be taken seriously. So as a body that is connected to law firms across Nigeria, integrity is a very important value for us as an organization. All right. We go to P. Partnership. Yes, we promote dialogue, build bridges, nurture strong partnerships to create a cyclical flow of value and knowledge between all stakeholders in legal practice and management across Nigeria. So from the managing partners to we engage and we try to ensure that all the bodies that are involved in law firm practice in Nigeria, we create that synergy and try to build bridges, because you cannot exist as an island. Okay, we try to build that partnership that would help, grow legal practice and management across Nigeria. All right, so partnership is one of our values. And we go to the last, which is E, which stands for excellence. Yes, we will deliver more than what is expected by building a gold standard model of legal practice and an excellent community of lawyers, law firms, law organizations, and clients. So in all that we do, we want to be excellent. We want to always stand out as people who drive excellence and have excellence as our watchword. All right. So I think that is that on our vision, mission, and core values. Okay.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you.
Okay.
Well done, everyone. We're going to continue with our next speaker. We have Mr. Yemi Faseun on the call.
Yes, Chema, just a second. Chema, good
Yes,
morning
please.
and good morning, everyone. I'm here now, but can I quickly switch devices, please? Just give me a few seconds. I'm going to switch devices. I'm going to get out and I'll come back in. Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
All right.
Choma, if I may, my hand is up. Since Yemi is switching devices, may I quickly take this opportunity to remind us all, if you're not in any committee, I'm calling at this point for you to join. We have a lot of committees where work is being done in the background and we want to run as a well-oiled machine. We have membership committee, we have publicity and event committee, we have learning and development, and we have marketing and sponsorship committee. So please, we're calling on you all, Alan, beautiful Alan members, to be a member of any of these committees, and let's do the work together. Together we can achieve so much. Secondly, a quick announcement. We have our Alan cocktail coming up in December. It's an annual program, and we always have a time where we relax, meet, enjoy ourselves. The last one was fantastic. Our very first Alan cocktail was amazing. So please remember to note that it's always the first Saturday in December. We will also start planning towards that. So diarize that and make sure that you attend. You don't want to miss out on this one again. Yes, thank you. I don't know if Yemi is in now. I can step down.
Yes, I'm here now.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks.
fantastic. Welcome. Good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Good to have you for joining us this morning. We've had sessions where other speakers have given their thoughts on the winning talent. So I'm going to ask you a question could form what you have to say to. Do you think there is war on talent at the moment? So say in Nigeria, which is our geographical space, and I would also narrow it down to the sector in which you're operating with legal space. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts, if I heard you very well, my thoughts around the Japa syndrome, right? Yes, Chema?
Your thoughts around, so our topic for the day is winning the war on talent. So your thoughts as to, is there an existing war on talent? Is this something that is affecting our geographical space, which is Nigeria, and all the legal sector? And any other information you'd like to share as well, or discussions? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. As I was joining, I thought I saw my sister Lola Esan on the call, right? And I'm not sure what else I will need to add to what Lola will have said, honestly. But let me say, from my perspective, is there a war? Absolutely, there is a war. The war has actually gone into overdrive at the moment, and it's impacting the demand and the supply side of talent. The demand from the perspective of the employers are really, really struggling to fill positions at the moment. There's so many vacancies declared. And I did say at another webinar that I just wrote off from now that recruiters seem to be the busiest amongst all the professions within the HR function at the moment. because recruitment is constantly in a state of flux and reflux. And that's because, number one, the Jackpot train is on high speed. And then number two, we are even struggling to fill the positions that are therefore declared because of the Jackpot thing. And that's because I was at a conversation at Ijeoma yesterday, and somebody pulled me back and said, Yemi, my own problem is peculiar. I hear all you said and know that my problem is peculiar. I need help. At a kind of director level, was building a successor, right? So that she could do some other things, or maybe when she retires and all that. And then all of a sudden, Jackpot hit, successor left. The successor to the successor left. So she said to me right now, Yemi, it's a gap between my level at sort of director head of function and then entry-level people reporting into me. And I'm even struggling to find the balance in terms of where do I get people and how do I manage these guys to quickly come up. I said to her, I was being frank, and I said to her, hey, even those who are at the base, be careful that you don't lose some of them as well. That's the reality that we face right now. So is Jackpot real? Are we in a war situation? Sincerely, that's the reality. And with regards to your profession, like you said, sincerely, I don't think any profession at all is insulated from this. I mean, everybody first thought it was the tech industry. And then I promise you, HR guys now, Lola, maybe Lola will have told you. I mean, so many of our colleagues, all we now see, we just see pictures of them and we're like, even you. I know that this Yoruba saying that the bird doesn't tell the bird that it's going to fly. You just see the bird and it's flying. So it is affecting, no single profession is insulated. Public health officials are leaving. Nurses are leaving. Doctors are leaving. Teachers are leaving. I'm consulting for an Ivy League primary and secondary school at Lekki at the moment. And the proprietor, the director, said to me 2 weeks ago that that it's never happened to them. Yes, they've lost some people to competition in the past and all that, but right now competition is not within, competition is now without. So it's happening across all professions, and unfortunately, we are also suffering from the supply side of things. The quality of available talent isn't exactly encouraging. I share this experience as well, just at the webinar I rolled off from. 3-4 days ago, somebody approached me and said, Yemi, I need somebody for a sales role. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay, good. Send me the job description so that I can put it up on my network. And she did. And eventually I was happy that the kind of profile that was recommended to me, looking at the job description and the profile of this individual, we should be able to fill this role. Yesterday morning, on my way to Ijeoma, my friend called me and said, Yemi, scam. I'm like, scam? I mean, I was a bit afraid, what's going on? She said, that CV you said to me was scam. There was a total disconnect between the individual we saw on the CV and the individual that was interviewed. So, is there a problem? Is there a war? There is. The quality, the pool quality is shrinking, and then the asking universe is increasing because of Jackpot. So yes, clearly there is a war out there right now.
Thank you so much for that. Sure. Thank you so much. So your book, The Now of Work. Yes, so really nice book. I've gone through most of the content, and yes, so I'd like to say there's a chapter where you were highlighting things that we can do to face these challenges, because the idea for this session is to say, okay, yes, we're identifying that there is an obvious problem. So what do we need to do? What can we do differently? So if you could, in some minutes, just share with us your thoughts and give us some things that you think would be helpful, because right now, like you said, and other speakers have said, there is a strong problem. Like, people are trying to retain talent, people are trying to do so much. One, what can we do to stand out? What can we do to improve the current situation that we have? Thank you.
Okay, so maybe 3-4 things that I will say quickly. Number one is to say that let's focus less on those who are leaving. They are either on their way out or they have left. Let's focus less on the train that is right now on full throttle. Let's focus less on those who are leaving. Number two is to say that Japa started maybe 2-3 years ago, really, maybe right now it's at full throttle, like I said, but it started 2-3 years ago. We have data coming out of the Japa syndrome that we can use to focus more on the current workforce. I call the current workforce our captive audience. What are we doing? And yes, you can tell me, Yemi, even those we call the captive audience, some of them are quarter to leaving. I agree. But they're still with us, right? Let's focus more on them. Let's focus on them in terms of technical development, in terms of leadership development, in terms of growing and nurturing them. I have said this like in many places. I totally believe that Nigeria is in a bad shape. Totally believe that Nigeria is in a bad shape. Yesterday, I went to Ijeoma. I left home at 6:30. By 7:40, I was at Ijeoma. By 7:40 or 8:40, I think 7:40, yeah. By 7:40, 6:30, 7:40, we were in Ijeoma. Coming back yesterday in the afternoon, I left Ijeoma at 2:40. I got to Aripo in about 40 minutes, and I spent 2 hours, 30 minutes to get to Omole phase 1. Between Aripo and Omole phase 1, 2.5 hours. That is like 10 or 12 max kilometer stretch. Is Nigeria very bad? Very bad. I totally agree. Security reasons, as I traveled on the road, every time we stop at a bad portion, you're always looking around. I mean, security things, by all means, very bad. But also, corporate Nigeria is contributing its own quota to the Japa syndrome. I am sure that Lola would have mentioned the fact that employees in today's world, especially the newer generations coming to the workplace, they are not looking for contract of employment. They are looking for contract of experience. And if they're not getting that experience, what are they going to do? They're going to look for options. So there are two things. Therefore, in terms of the captive audience, there is the push factor, and then there is the pull factor. The pull factor being the opportunities available to them in the US, in Canada, in Brazil. And then the push factor in terms of the toxic work environments where they have found themselves. People will always have options. As I speak now, a friend of mine, and I've mentioned this as well in another forum before, is probably sleeping right now. I think he works on Saturdays. I'm not sure, but he works in Brazil and lives in Omole phase 1. The opportunities are many. Economists are saying to them, come with your money and come and school with us. We will give you your visa. We will give you your dependents visas. We will give your kids opportunity to come to our school and all that. And people are taking those advantages. Pull factors. But what about the push factors? How many of our people are we pushing out of corporate Nigeria, out of Nigeria into other spaces because of the quality of employee experience that they're getting from us? We need to rethink employee experience in the now of work. And when I wrote that book, I mean, I think it was last year or year before the last, I mean, we were no longer thinking of the future of work. We had started seeing the changes happening based on the future of what we were talking about that then became the now of work. We said that performance management was going to change. For instance, you want to manage a millennial or a Gen Z, and you're waiting till the end of the year before you give them a feedback. Some don't even give them feedback at all. You want to have engagement with them, and you think the best way to get value out of them is to shout, scream, use uncouth language on them as their leaders. No, it won't happen. So the fundamentals around performance management must change. The fundamentals around leadership, how we manage them, must change, so that this captive audience, at least let's give them quality employee experience And if perhaps they want to stay a bit longer with us in our organization, and if not, if they do go, they will remain ambassadors of the organization. So that's for the captive audience. Then the third thing I'll say is a kind of backward integration. You know, I mentioned data. We have data already from where we are coming from, the last 2 years, the last 3 years. Data must be telling us something. What can we do from a pipelining perspective? What can we do to get ourselves ready? And the approaches I'm suggesting, I agree, will be long-term and not major short-term approaches. We've got to approach things more strategically. So what can we do with pipelining in addition to what we are doing with our workforce? We already have data suggesting the movement of people at certain times of the year, leading, for instance, to September, leading, for instance, to January, for those who missed the September resumption date in schools. We've got data. What can we do, therefore, to pipeline talent so that we are ready when opportunities to replace actually happen? So those are the 3-4 things. Number one, focus less on those who are japping for now. Number two, concentrate on your captive audience, your workforce that you have right now. Don't give them anyhow employee experience. Change things around. Stop promoting people into leadership positions without getting them ready for leadership responsibilities. They will drive your talents away. And then go and let's try and do backward integration, i.e. what can we get from those who are out of school, just coming out of school. And please let's not say, oh, the quality is not great. What are we doing about the quality? What happened to those days of graduate trainees, compulsorily, those days of management trainees, those days of compulsorily going to school before you become a manager, or before you become a senior, or before you become a supervisor? Let's go back to the basics and change the way we view the talent of now. Otherwise, the war will just continue. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Faseun, for that. I believe that we're going to share a link to your book for the audience so that they can have a look at the ideas you've penned down. We're going to open the floor now. Mrs. O has hands up. We'll be hearing from her. Mrs. O, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to ask a question based on what YF said. You said that indeed the JAPA trend is real, which I totally agree. You said that backward integration, do something about employability, deploy training again. Now, I wanted to mention that there is another factor which you sort of mentioned when you were talking about the situation of the country with your trip to and fro Ijebu, the economic situation of the country. With that, organizations are literally struggling to keep clients and charge what will make them profitable. So the war within organizations, or rather, should I say, the war within industries is also there. While you are there training your people and they become good, after 2 years, you have bigger organizations coming to take them from you. You have trained them, but for whatever reason, maybe they are able to increase their salary, and then they encroach on mid-sized organizations who, because of economic reasons, perhaps cannot match salary. Okay, because you kept talking about, graduate training, which I totally am in for. Everybody should be trained, and don't just say, oh, the pipeline is really poor. These people are not good, so therefore we can't hire. So in that case where this war is now happening and the economic situation is not permitting you as a firm, for example, to up your game financially, otherwise you're going to go bankrupt and people are taking your staff. So what do? Do you stop training, or you just, what do you do? How do you manage this? How do you win this war? Yeah, at a disadvantage. So I'm trying to glean into your experience. What would you recommend? What do you suggest?
Okay. So quickly, this is what I'll say. The MD says, the CFO says, we train our people and they are leaving. And the MD responds, what will happen if you don't train them? They become rusty, right? And we want to keep rusty people? Maybe not. That's number one. Number two to say is that what we are witnessing now is also a reflection of what we did not do or what we stopped doing years ago. And I'll explain. Someone like me, for the last 4 to 5, maybe 6 years, I've been preaching self-development to the workforce because I realized the gap. Organizations were not training people anymore. So I kept telling anybody who cared to listen to me, don't wait for the organization to train you, train yourself. And some people listen. And then technology and the pandemic helped us to fast track that process of self-development. Data also became commoditized. I mean, cheap, available. So people can go on LinkedIn and do training. People can go to Coursera and free training and all that. And when I spend my time and resources, in some instances, money, to train myself, where do you think my loyalty will lie? It will lie with me. And that's what's happened. So people have been training themselves and developing themselves, and organizations, competition, countries, US, UK, Canada, they're seeing them and they're snatching them away from us. Can we try, again, long-term, can we try and buy back some sort of loyalty from the workforce by investing in them, investing in their future, even as couples and friends and colleagues? When we see individuals investing in our future, there is a kind of psychological bond that exists. Can we start again to invest, not because we want to keep them only, but because we want to bind them, I keep using that word, to a higher purpose, so that even if they leave, they remain ambassadors of our organizations? That's number 2. Number 3, this is the point where I might need to go sit with the KPMGs and the EYs and the Deloitte and PwCs of this world. Because, I mean, I left Athonasi in 2002. I spent 3 years at 1999 to 2002, and I followed them before then, and I've followed since after then. The organizations are built for attrition. They deliberately build structures and processes for attrition. And they are going stronger from a talent perspective. They're also part of the war. They will tell you that they're suffering from the global talent war, but they seem to be doing better. And that is because they are built resilience to absorb the war around talent. And this is over decades. I think this is the time for us to start looking at that operating model around talent management. To say that I'm going to get in 25 people into my organization, maybe 10 of them will be with me in the next 5 years. But guess what? I am building or pipelining on a yearly basis for that succession, for that attrition. And that's how they have been built. And the last thing is, such organizations play in the space of great employee experience. And therefore, when their people leave, the contract of employment does not end on the day of exit. They have very strong alumni associations, such that people are coming back or people are referring jobs to them. So you leave Athonasi or KPMG now and you become CFO, but because of the strong affinity that continued even after the end of your job contract with that organization, we are still getting jobs through you. So it is for me, thinking ahead and also thinking and saying, what can we do? What have we missed that we can do and do a lot better? But let me say, if your culture isn't great, if your employee experience sucks as an organization, if people do not have a psychological contract with the organization, it is totally impossible for them to be part of your alumni association. I keep saying it, the things that I'm propounding, they are long-term, but the earlier we start, the better. It's difficult to buy talents off the shelf right now. Number one, talents are packaging and repackaging anyhow. So what you buy, there's always a difference between what you see on the shelf to buy and what you see in reality from a performance perspective. So it's a lot of thinking to do. It's a lot of strategic dimensioning of how to manage talent generally and then specifically to our different organizations, because there is really no one size fits all at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
you kind of answered, but I mean, I don't want to drag this matter. I think one factor that I would also want to mention is the Gen Zs, okay? I don't know if you can buy their loyalty. I don't know that you can, there's nothing that you would do, I think, that will really keep them if they want to get off the train. Your culture is fantastic, everything is great. All of these things that you mentioned, the boxes are ticked. Yet you are hurt because they still jump off, whether you've done them well or not. Just to drop that there. I'll give it that.
No,
Shove over to you.
I agree 100%. They're a different breed. That's the reality. And I do a lot of work with them. And I also still realize that despite the fact that we have those, I don't want to call them misconceptions, maybe biases on a general note around them, we still have a lot of them who are willing to stay if they can buy the vision that we sell to them. They may not be many, they may really not be many, but you know what? After a while, there's a bubble around the Gen Zs. There was a bubble around the millennials and it burst after a while. I think the Gen Zs actually burst their bubble. But you know what? There's a bubble around the Gen Zs right now. And the bubble will also burst. It's a matter of time.
It will, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
We will
it's just the immediacy that will be affected.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as we understand their evolution, I think the question is, what are we doing to manage the situations around them? And maybe this is the time, madam, to go back to all reliable. I mean, at some point, maybe 2 years ago, I remember that a recruiter in the UK came across to me and wanted a chief talent officer for its holdco, a bank in Nigeria. And it was like, Yemi, I've worked with you since 2012. I think you'll do well and all that. And then we started the conversation. And then a couple of weeks later, I said, Yemi, no, they want a younger person. They want somebody who's not 40 yet. Sincerely, who's not 40 yet. But the someone who's not 40 yet now is in Canada. Spend a couple of months with them, and the person is in Canada. So maybe the pillar that some organizations have rejected,
yes, will become
becoming the cornerstone now of the organization. That's another food for thought. Another food for thought.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Ijeoma, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Faseun. So Mrs. Harrison Abiola's hand is up. I think she has some question or thoughts. Matt, the floor is open to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, YF. It's so amazing to have you.
Thank you.
These are very, very, these are thoughts that we need to, when I don't know how it's said in the Muslim religion, but when the Bible says Selah, that we do need to pause and do a lot of thinking. Yes. So building for attrition, that is amazing, and I think for me, that is a big takeaway. JAPA is here to stay. So how do we build like an AA, just the experience you just shared? Let's focus on people leaving. Let's build from the top down. And that is, we need to roll up our sleeves. And I think that's a strategy we can actually go sell to our people. Getting the foot soldiers, invest in them, build them up. Maybe 10%, 20% may stay, but you have a pipeline. That is so fantastic. Thank you. So my question,
yes, ma'am.
I'm really interested in this silent quitter. Lola mentioned it, and since I heard it a couple of weeks ago from my millennial daughter, it's been amazing for me. So YF, I need your thoughts on silent quitters. How do I know them? For me, they are more dangerous. I'd rather you give me your resignation and I know that you are out the door. I need some, symptoms or signals as to how to identify silent quitters. Thank you.
Quiet quitters. Okay, so I know that we might have had the conversation around quiet quitters, but what we probably didn't say before I joined the conversation would be quiet firing. Because quiet quitting is a reaction. It's actually a reaction. So now I say that the Gen Zs are sending us to therapy. The question is, what did we do to the point where they became quiet quitters? Did we fire them by not giving them the right leadership competencies? And I saw somebody made a comment. I read it. Just a second. I think I read something. Yeah, I think it was Nelma who said, I think you can buy their loyalty by respecting them. That is Gen Zs. The old ways of management cannot work with them. Shouting, excessive condemnation will not work on them. I am 105% in agreement with that. You see, when they come to work, right, and they came 5 minutes late, and we didn't ask them, are you okay? What made you come late? But we sent a memo to HR to deduct 10,000 from their salary. You are quiet firing them. When they wanted to connect with you as their boss, as their manager, but you're not available, the only thing that you want to talk about is the report. You're not connecting, you're not engaging, you're not leading them with empathy, you're not leading them with humility. I promise you, you are quiet firing them. Those are the actions coming from us as leaders, as managers. And the reaction coming from them is quiet quitting. That's the reality. It's not likely that I would lead a team, and I say that with all sense of humility. It's not likely that I will lead a team and I will not notice a quiet quitter in my team. Not likely. But because we are a bit engaged with, we are totally engaged with the business, but we are either a bit engaged with them or not engaged with them at all, then they are quite quitting on us. Back to leadership. But if one, I mean, again, let's go, I'm sorry to go biblical. I rarely do this. If somebody is leading a ship of 10 or 100 and one is missing, that person should know. And then you leave the one that you're engaged with, the 9 or the 99, and you go after the 1 or the 10 missing. That's the job of leadership. But we leave so many of them behind, and I am not excusing the behaviors of some of the Gen Zs. They are impatient. They're not willing to learn. They want to jump onto the next thing. They multitask a lot. They're not focused. I hear all of that. But guess what? If you go speak to our parents, they're likely to use the same adjectives to describe us as we're going into either the workspace or we are growing into adulthood with them. They are likely to use the same adjectives. What has changed the landscape in the now of work is technology. It's social media. So people have said, oh, Nigeria, in our time, Nigeria was great. And then the one before them, in our time, it's the same thing with the workforce. We are changing, but what is allowing us to see what's the word I'm looking for now? The, in quotes, damaging effect of the technology and social media is because it is in everybody's face at the moment. Before now, we really didn't see it on TikTok. We didn't see it on Snapchat. We didn't see it on LinkedIn. We didn't see all of that. It will take a while before we saw it on email. It will take a while before you saw it on your Yahoo, but right now, it is available. It happens. If it's happening right now, it is happening right now, and everybody can see it right now. So we've got to change our leadership competencies, ma'am. That is where I sit in my relationship with the newer generation. We've got to be closer to them. Look at the way we manage at home. Let me give you a typical example as I rest this quickly. We say that, let's treat them, we need to be tough on them so that they can grow, so that they can man up, so that they can, but when we come home and our teenage kids and the younger kids, when we want to treat them to understand our ways and the ways of life, you know what we say to them? Let's treat them with love so that they can understand. Can we transport that, treating them with love and affection and connectedness and humility and empathy? Can we transport all of that from the house to the workplace? Yes. If you ask me, do you want to mother them? Yes. Do you want to father them? Absolutely. That's what they want. That's the new generation. And guess what? We are the ones who actually brought these guys up. They didn't drop from anywhere. We said to them, stand up for your rights in school. We said to them, don't give in to any bully. And if they came to us at home and they said, oh, there was a bully in my class, but I didn't allow him, what did we say? We said high five, right? So why are we surprised that they are standing up to bullies in the workplaces? Why are we surprised that they're expecting different sets of leadership competencies from us. If we want to get the best out of them, we've got to change our leadership styles. The leadership style that worked up to now will not work with the current generation. One incident of you shouting at them, they will ghost on you. They don't have the time to resign. They will just send you through dispatch your laptop. And that's the end of that is resignation to them. We can't change it. That's the reality, but we've got to find better ways of managing. So please, leaders, managers of people, we've got to have new ways of managing the new generation. And I promise you, we will get better results out of them.
Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry, Ijeoma. I was wondering if I could just, comment on JJ's question in addition to what YF has said. Would that be okay?
Yes, go on.
Okay, excellent. I think I was reading a review last week, and it was really more about, are we asking the right questions? I think everything starts with engagement and ends with engagement. So in all of these things, like YF has said, like everyone has said, is, there are definitely pre-quitting behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
We speaking those pre-quitting behaviors up, and are we having conversations around them? So I've talked about trust initially. Do they trust you enough to have that conversation? Do they have psychological safety to have the conversations, that could preempt them from then eventually displaying that final action of like tendering their resignation or sending your laptop to you and all of that. Size of team retention risk. What's the size in terms of organization design and team structure and grouping and teams? What's the size of the team? What's the size of the group? What's the risk? Are we assessing that? Managers asking themselves that question in terms of org design. So that way, that's the only way you can build, talent pipeline, even if, regardless of the generation, because a Gen Z can behave funny. Anybody from any generation can actually have, poor behavior. That's the honest truth. It's also a function of when we're recruiting, what are we testing? And what is our scale testing? So if you build a scale that is testing for competition, for instance, in your psychometric assessment, you're going to hire people who are going to be competing with each other within your system, and you're going to build that culture. So I think that it's important for us to also consider during recruitment process, it is who you bring in that you get. So the best, if you can get the best out of, if you can screen well, then you have likelihood of getting the kind of personality that you want and behavior and characteristics that you want. Stay interview questions. A lot of times we talk about exit interviews and all of that. Are we asking stay interview questions from people? Do we care? And how valid are the questions that we're asking? How instrumental are those questions to help us drive, the result that we want, which is basically, retention. Finally, people will always leave. Yep. Consider these, work-life, patterns, basically. What's the age? What's the tenure of your people? If somebody has worked with you for 25 years, for crying out loud, the person is going to leave someday. What plans do you have? So what are their demographics is always very, very important. Are we asking the right questions in order to help do a proper workforce planning? And like YF has said, pipeline planning, in terms of management. In general terms, for me, I think that loyalty, like YF has said, is key. And loyalty, I would wrap is not a function of it depends on how we define it. Loyalty doesn't mean that I stay with your organization because I've got my own life, they've got their own lives as well. Loyalty is, even when I'm not in your organization, do I mean well for your organization? And so when I come in, when you give me work to do, am I sharing my knowledge with other people, transferring learning to other people, or am I hoarding the knowledge? When we bring in a person to an organization, we bring in personality and we bring in the competency. Both personality and traits, the trait and the competency form a human being, and they cannot be separated. So in that instance, when somebody comes in with their personality and then comes in with the competency, are they transferring those competencies to others, or are they keeping it to themselves such that when they leave you empty? Are we watching for those behaviors? I think that it's important for us to begin to focus on behaviors, because I think right now, behaviors is what drive results, for organizations. And the more we focus on behaviors and measure behaviors, in concrete ways that can help us to take actionable steps, the better we may be able to then also, attract and then retain, whether regardless of any sort of, generation that we have. We should also stop tagging people, generations with attributes. I think it's already like more or less like attacking them. They feel defensive. I think it's important that we stop tagging them with, I even give up on this Gen Zs or idea. Everyone has got their own baggage, and the more we just take the best that we can from each generation, the better the workforce would be. That's my thought. Just a little contribution to what Eva said. Thank you.
Matthews. Thank you, Mr. Faseun. So very quickly, we want to try and round up the entire session for today. I see that Oluwaseun's hand is up. I don't know if you have a question or a thought, but can we have that very quickly? Because after this, we'll move to having the closing
yes,
remarks
I do have a question.
Our chair. Okay, sorry, one second before.
It's just my question is, it's relating to the Japa syndrome. How can we manage or retain employees that want to relocate or Japa, spending the time we get a replacement? Because most of those who are relocating, some are relocating as a result of spouse or something, and some don't have a ready job where they are relocating to. How can we, and some of them we really do not want to leave their job, but how do we retain them? Thank you.
Okay. If that's for me, what is it gonna be easy for you to retain them? And then if they eventually settle, you want to continue the relationship, or you want to continue the relationship for a short period of time? And I know many organizations are doing that. So what you want to do is to have a conversation around it, an engagement. If it's for a 3-month period, and I have done this before as well. Somebody was relocating to the UK, was my talent acquisition manager, and the management agreed with us that we should have the guy stay with us for another 6 months for the period where we're able at least to get some sort of replacement. But that is some sort of contract or agreement that will be built on trust. Because what happens if the individual settles down and gets another job, and then you become the side hustle for the individual? And when deliverables start to suffer, what are you going to do? So let it be based on conversations, and also put, what's it called, around it. Put a framework, put a time limit around it. I'll probably do 3 months renewable. If the performance of the individual hasn't suffered in any way because of distance or because of other commitments, by all means, you can renew for another 3 months. It's part of the connection with the employee beyond the time of exit. So that's fine. But again, you don't want to do that for just anyone. What are the track records of the individual when the person was with you? Or you are just panicking? Because I've also seen many managers and employers go into panic mode. The point is, God forbid, if for whatever reason the individual is totally incapacitated, what would you do? And that's always the final question I'm asking. Always, when people say, Yemi, this person has gone, but I want to pay in dollars or I want to pay in pounds to retain the person, I'm always asking, what if the individual is incapacitated? What would you do? So comes back to what one of the things I have said, and Funbi also highlighted, to say that do not forget to plan for your talent pipeline. Don't wait. Japa is just bringing so many things that we have been talking about for decades. Japa is just bringing it to the fore. I'm not kidding you. We've been talking about this pipelining and succession planning and getting the workforce. We've been talking about it for decades. But because Japa was not on the horizon, nobody was listening to us. But right now, I'm doing a webinar back to back. In both instances, it's about Japa and talent retention. We've been having these conversations for a while. So like I said earlier on, let's take data from it. Let's understand what's going on. The period people are leaving, the roles people are leaving, and then let's start pipeline management, pipeline strategy, so that we can get people ready for those opportunities. But at times, it could happen. A great employee from a technical and behavioral culture perspective wants to leave, but we can have a continuous conversation with them for another 3 months or 6 months. The world is a global village anyway, and there are no time boundaries anymore in terms of what people can achieve. It's a credible option,
Thank you so much, Mr. Faseun. Seun, I hope that answers your question. We would love to take more questions at this point, but we're 14 minutes past our time. And I would like to say that please engage the group, the association, with these conversations. Mr. Faseun is on LinkedIn. I follow him and I note that I think at Monday or Tuesdays, he drops on Mondays, he drops very, I would say, inspirational and thought guidelines on how to be proactive in the workplace, how to lead people, and it's very, very insightful. So I would say that you can engage him on his social media handle, LinkedIn preferably, because that's where I see most of this content. And we've also uploaded his book. Please check out the chat box for a link. Just very quickly, before we conclude, thank you so much, sir, for your time. Thank you for joining us this Saturday. We're really blessed to have had you and for you to share your wealth of experience. Thank you so much. And Alan, thanks you as well.
Thank you. Can I say something before we wrap up? Please accept my apologies. I came late to join the session, and that was because I was in another conversation. Let me just be vulnerable. I double booked myself for today, 2 events same time. But I'm happy we're still able to manage it. So please accept my apology that I came late. And I think when I was joining, I also didn't mute and there was some sort of noise. Please, I sincerely apologize. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. So quickly, we're going to have a membership chair, Mrs. Kemi Ajayi, give us the closing remarks and close out the session. Thank you everyone for your patience thus far. Thank you. Mrs. Ajayi, the floor is open to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Apologies, I couldn't get on immediately. I double booked as well. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed the sessions we've had, and I look forward to listening to all of them again. There's so much value that we get from Alan, and sincere thanks to our speakers for today, starting from Madam Funbi, our deeply rooted research person. She's a fountain of knowledge. Thank you so much, Lola, for always answering us when we call. We will keep coming, so don't get tired of us. And thank you very much, Mr. Faseun. It's such a delight to hear your points, and the conversations generally today has been mind-opening yet again. Thanks to all of our participants, members of Alan. Thank you for all the things you do, the sacrifices, for hanging on and for adding value to our different firms. So we look forward to other sessions. We'll continue to engage on our platforms, and we're still going to have a great time this year. So please stay tuned. Thank you all very much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And a special sincere thanks to our moderator. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ajayi. Thank you, everyone, for your time.
I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to speak actually after Kemi has spoken, but I do not want to miss the opportunity of acknowledging the presence of one of our trustees, Mrs. Sylvia Nzeku. Thank you so much for being here.
Joy, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. Great session. I really learned a lot.
Big sis. Thank you.
Audrey, well done, all of you. Great presentations from Funbi, Lola, and YF. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. So if At the moment, I don't think we have anything else for our agenda. And with the permission of the president, I'd like to close out the session for today. Thank you so much for your time.
We're supposed to do some pictures.
We should take pictures. Everybody turns on their video.
Please. Just a minute. I'm trying to look for.
Oh, see Kemi's headgear. Glory, hallelujah.
Mommy Gio is in church.
Oh, great. We can see everyone. Please, Alan, Tony, be responsible for this picture that we need to take. Oh, yeah. Who is taking the picture? Chama?
My phone, can someone do a screenshot? Because my phone is acting up. I don't know why.
Jade and Kaka, you are the one in charge of photography.
Kemi.
Let's do this.
Thank you so much, Funbi.
Funbi, aka Prof.
Amazing, Funbi. Mommy Gio.
Hey, Benedicta Charles, good to see your faces.
I'm having little issues with my laptop. Please, can you help us to just let me change the background to gallery so that way.
Okay, I'm going to take him bit because I have to.
We can't see your fine face, so Margaret.
Well done, thank you.
First shot, everyone smile.
Oh, let's see that makeup they're using to go for this wedding.
Everyone smile. First shot, I'm using my phone. I see Tony, Funbi, Kemi, Benedicta, Charles, and YF in the first.
Margaret, let's see your wedding makeup.
One picture taken. Hold on.
Wedding makeup, please. Norma,
next
your
set.
face, please,
Stephanie,
everyone.
Oluwatoyin, turn on your video. Turn on your video. Teacher, I see you. Stephanie, turn on your video.
Please now.
Turn on your video. If they are Nuku, please turn on your video. We're taking the next shot now.
Madam Fisher.
Yeah. Benedicta, good to see your face.
Okay, let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's go. Benedict, Shelere, please, your video on. If
please turn off your video. Norma.
Okay, good. Now, because we're doing this in sets because I'm using the phone.
Spinning you. I've been smiling since so.
Just keep it on. Okay, next picture taken. Then the final now. Who is this now? Okay, Yetunde, Margaret, David, Adeita Fisher. This is your set now. Good. Kodili Chuku, Neoma, Modupe, video on. I'm taking it.
Kodili Chuku, put on your video. Show us your fine face.
No, don't put it on. No, turn it on. You're not for your video because turn it on. Don't put it on.
Victor, we still can see your face.
I will lie.
All of these sets, I don't see anybody. If your video is off again, Stephanie, Adeito, Neoma, Kodili, Modupe.
Shola, your video is off. Madame Ebene.
Okay, Modupe is on now. Video, good. Stephanie is on.
Please, everyone.
Oh dear. If you don't show, not come to Peko.
Mama is showing soon.
Thank you so much, YF. Thank you again. Thank you everyone. Thank you. Gio. Wow.
Ebele, your video is off.
I won't lie. Can I wear my glasses back?
Why not?
I have your shot.
Okay, so let's work hard to deliver a fantastic end of year program where we'll have as many managing partners attending as possible. This is also a flagship.
Hi, Norma here. First time here, sorry.
Awesome.
Oh, it's good
you
to have
so many questions, Norma. First time.
Where's our video? Where's your picture? No, I'm looking for you. I need to take a shot. Where are you? I see you. I'm taking a picture now. Smile.
Yeah, no, she looks like a peck person, actually.
Oh, yeah. Everybody should just be in
No, I think she looks like an L&D person.
Perhaps you should join.
Ijeoma is more membership.
No, but my president, I think it looks more like a membership person. See the way she's looking very.
Charles is the membership person. Charles, no, Chelsea or Stephanie.
Charles, we'll contact you.
Charles, unmute your mic. We can't hear you.
Good to see your face.
I will join.
I have a question.
Hello,
so who
Madam.
is planning to jackpot before the end of the year?
Me, I'm ready to jackpot.
Ijeoma, drop your hands. Ijeoma, drop your hands. How are you going to?
It's not just employees.
I'll bring you back.
Me, I want to jackpot if they can pay me thousands of pounds. My mouth is very big.
Please
don't worry, just be
my
here.
chair, they can't afford you. That's why you can't jackpot.
They can afford me, oh, please, in Jesus' name.
If the whole prime minister could resign, is it you? No, please.
It should be ending that amount, 115,000 pounds yearly for the rest of our life. For only 6 weeks in office.
Everybody.
That's why we all need to be strategic, right?
Mm.